Nearly every vintage Toyota from the 90s and 2000s will have this problem at some point. So we need to remove this panel underneath the steering wheel, and it's held on with 4 bolts. That's pretty darn simple to take off. So after you get all those bolts out of the way, we can now access the upper ignition part, and we're gonna have to pull that out of the car to perform this repair. So if you cannot get the key flipped into the accessory mode, we need to do some drilling, but this one does go into place by jiggling it for about 5 minutes. So once it's in the accessory mode, basically remove the trim cover holding the outer key on, and this one actually has a light. So I'm doing this on a 3rd gen 4Runner, but it's similar to Tacoma, Tundra, Camry, every other old Toyota. This one's actually a 1997. So located underneath the key, there is a little slot where you're going to push a screwdriver in and pull the whole assembly out. So if you can't get it to the accessory mode, you need to drill that pin out very carefully, not too deep and not too shallow. So because mine's an accessory, I'm just pushing it down and that whole system will basically pop up. So I do have to warn you at this point, you can just buy this whole OEM key edition for like $63 on eBay, and it's linked in the description, or you can buy a $20 Dorman one. I would personally buy the Toyota one after having a lot of Dorman parts fail on me in the past, and this job is kind of a nightmare. So if you're pretty good at drilling out riv nuts and rebuilding tiny little stuff, let's see how it goes. On the back side of the key cylinder, opposite of the key, we have a simple snap ring to remove. So these are a very cheap set of snap ring pliers that you probably get away with a screwdriver to remove that snap ring. So now we're going to mount this up in a vise. You don't necessarily need a vise, but it does make things quite a bit more simple. So pay attention closely to where the screwdriver is on your screen. So there is a pin here that is non-removable. So we need to do some hackery to get this pin out of its designated location, because this is kind of like a tamper-proof device you don't want people to get into, but we're going to defeat it. So simply roll the key cylinder over, roll it over, and then make a little mark about where the pin would end. And then we're going to get a drill, and we're going to drill into this where the screwdriver is located now. After that hole is drilled, not too deep and deep enough to get underneath the pin, you're going to get a flat bladed pick, stick it in the hole, and you're going to pry the lock pin up. Boop. So the lock pin does not need to come out, but I did pull it all the way out. So just for reference, this is what it should look like if you're an expert locksmith like my friend who showed me how to do this. We're just going to pry that pin a little bit up. But in order to pry that face off, we have one more step. There's 2 rivets on the back of the key cylinder, like the face of it near where the key goes in. And I tried several different methods. I tried a Dremel, hacking it off, and the best method I found was to drill those rivets out. So you can't miss the 2 rivets on the back. And once you get that faceplate off, basically you're going to get the tumbler out of the key cylinder. So there's a very important step here. You need to make sure the key is inserted in here, or all the little waffles, wafers will basically fall out. So keep the key in there as long as you possibly can. Once you have the tumbler in your hand, you're going to see the split wafer that's basically causing all the problems, and you can just rip this out with a set of pliers. If you don't have these tiny snap-on pliers, you should get a set. So I have a picture here from the professional locksmith friend I have, and we're going to remove this one for absolute certain, because it's the split wafer that causes all the key tumbler issues on the Toyota ignition keys. So it goes all the way through, so you need to remove 2 split wafers, remove it on one side and then remove it on the other side, so you'll have 2 wafers. So underneath the wafers, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, there is a couple little tiny springs, and I used a tiny little set of pliers or cell phone repair kit with tweezers in there to pull the springs out. So according to my professional locksmith friend, we also need to remove this one on both sides because it also causes problems. He had the exact terminology and I don't even remember, but here's the picture. So pay attention closely here. So look at my fingers. They are holding the other split wafers in place because the key is removed. So if the key is removed, all those things will basically fall out all over the table and you're going to have a very bad day. So anytime the key is removed, you need to make sure you're holding those wafers in place. So reassembling it is pretty straightforward. All you need to do is basically push the tumbler back inside of there and drive that pin we pried up back into place, and the face will basically kind of lock back into place even with the drilled out rivet that's missing from the back. As a warning from a professional locksmith who helped me do this, you are compromising some of the security of your tumbler by removing those split wafers that basically someone could come along with another worn out Toyota key and potentially start your car. So there's your warning. So putting this back together, just make sure you put the trim around the key in first and then the kick plate, the knee panel on last. So this particular Toyota 4Runner has everything is completely worn out, including the door lock tumblers having the same issue as the main key cylinder. So I did remove the whole entire door panel and remove the key cylinder from the door lock on the driver's side because it was the most damaged. So this is not a particularly fun job because you're working behind the sheet metal in the door. If I should do a tutorial on that one, let me know. So essentially I removed the key cylinder, disassembled it, removed as many wafers as I could, and was unable to get this key cylinder working in the right order. So what I ended up doing was pulling the key tumbler from the passenger side and putting it on the driver's side because that one from the passenger side did not have as much wear. So I would highly recommend buying the key for the door locks because the repair, removing the split wafer from the door key locks, did not go very good. This is a long series of videos restoring this classic 1997 third generation 4Runner. So if you want to see the entire build, click this playlist on your screen.